Okay, so we are up to day 156, and the quote for today says, "Regret is unnecessary. Think before you act." And it says, "Do you think before you act? Write about a time you regret because you didn't think before you took action. How would you do it differently today?" So if you're following along, just take a minute to think about how you might respond to this, and I will read what I wrote. I honestly have no idea what I would have written about this. When did I not think before I acted? Which, I mean, I'm sure I do a lot, but let's see. I would say that I typically do think quite a bit before I act. And I put in parentheses, maybe a little too much. I said maybe that's the reason why I don't have any major regrets. And I don't know if it's that I don't have regrets or if it's that I just kind of, I mean, there are lots of things that I would change in my past. Lots of things that I'm a little bit embarrassed that I did, but I don't have any like one like major, well, I do have a couple of regrets, but it's not, I don't have anything major that I dwell on like on a day-to-day basis, I guess. I said most of the regrets that come to mind weren't caused by me acting spontaneously, but by my decisions being influenced by other people or being rushed by other people. Okay. So I said the regret at the top of my mind now deals with how I handled my grandparents' property after their death. So yeah, I stressed about that for like a year. I had a family members telling me what to do, so I felt somewhat pressured to make certain decisions that ultimately led to most of my grandparents' belongings being destroyed, as well as creating a large rift between myself and my family. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I don't really care. I'll talk about it. So my this is gonna get really personal, but whatever. So basically, my grandparents really helped my mom raise me and my sister. We lived, so they own this piece of property, and they helped my parents build a house on their property. And so we lived in that house when I was little, but it was literally like, I don't know how far the distance is, but it's not very far. I can just walk right over next door to where we lived as a kid. And so my grandparents helped out a lot with babysitting. We were over here like most of the time. I don't know where me and my sister would be right now if we didn't have like so much help. If my mom didn't have so much help from my grandparents. My dad was like no help at all. Like he wasn't around. Like he was around, but he wasn't really around all that much. Definitely didn't do any parenting. But anyway, so eventually my parents bought some property and built their own house that's literally like half a mile away. And but my grandparents didn't trust leaving the property to my mom, mostly because of my dad, because my dad he's a narcissist and he's just got lots of issues. And so they were worried that if they passed away, and for like it's like they thought they were gonna die like 30 years before they died. Like once their friends started dying in like their 50s or 60s, my grandparents were just thinking it's any day now for us, you know. And so like when I was young, they were already concerned about, you know, having their will and what's going to happen to their things when they pass away. And so when I was like in middle school, they went ahead and put their property in me and my sister's name because they were concerned that if my mom got the property that my dad might, I don't know, talk her into selling it or something. And they wanted, you know, to try to keep the property, you know, in the family, or at least have something that goes to us. Like thankfully they were pretty forward thinking like that. And so, and they were right because even though my mom ended up divorcing my dad recently, like a couple years ago, few years ago, um, he had a sister that has a kind of similar personality to him, and she buddied up to my mom. And whenever my grandparents passed away, so the house was just sitting here kind of empty for a while, and all of their things were still in it. My sister's off in California. I was actually living an hour away going to school. And so my aunt on my dad's side was like, well, we're wanting to move back, and I don't know exactly what transpired between my aunt and my mom, but it led to my mom calling me and asking me if my aunt and uncle can live in the house, for a while they're looking for a place. And there'd already been an issue with my aunt and uncle living in a place that my parents owned, and it didn't turn out well. And I thought my aunt had me a little bit tricked. Like, I thought it was all my dad's fault that things kind of fell apart with that, because it wouldn't surprise me. But I didn't feel like, as soon as my mom asked me, like, it didn't sit well with me. But at the same time, I was like, well, I'm not living in it. The house is just empty. I would come down on weekends. I'd been coming down like almost every weekend anyway for like the last 5 years, because, my grandparents were sick and I would come and help take care of them. And, I kind of wanted to, I don't know. I didn't sit right with me, but my mom was kind of like, this is a good idea. And I was feeling kind of pressured. And so I was kind of like, well, okay. And my sister didn't trust my aunt and uncle, and so we made them like sign a lease and all this stuff. And then anyway, at the end of the day, my aunt didn't really follow some of the rules we put. Like, one of the rules was that my dad does not step foot on this property. Immediately she had him help her move. So he was here moving their stuff. I was under the impression they were just gonna need, like, I thought that they were gonna like live in the house still furnished. I wasn't ready to like move all of my grandparents' stuff out and everything. So we cleaned out one bedroom for them, and had kind of left most of the other furnishings in the house. I thought they were just gonna need one bedroom, one bathroom, and then, the rest of the house was gonna stay pretty much as it was. And they didn't do that. They moved all of the things out and put it in this garage that's on the property that, the garage floods and all this stuff. So basically, like, they moved everything out and pretty much everything got destroyed. So my sister came down to visit, found this out. I didn't know about this. Like, I knew that they had moved the stuff out, but they told me, they're like, oh, I was like, but the place floods, and they're like, oh, we took care of it. And I had looked in there and they had stuff on pallets. Well, come to find out, they had their stuff, like the extra stuff that didn't fit in the house, stored on pallets in the garage, but all of my grandparents' stuff was just on the floor. There was like boxes with photos, like everything just on the ground that got flooded. And my sister was upset, like, really upset. And when she came down and found that out, she was like, I want them out, like, give them 30 days notice. I want them out, because she owns the property too. And this just put a big rift between my mom. My mom was feeling stressed. We were like, Mom, you don't have to, like, they don't have to be mad at you. It's us. Like, we're telling them to move out. But she felt like she was kind of put in the middle. And that's always how it's been. Like, she always was like put in the middle between, like, if we were upset at my dad, she would get upset and all stressed because she's in the middle. Like, my dad is coming to her, like, how can you let them do, And so she's always kind of put herself in the middle of these like narcissistic people that take advantage of her. But then it also kind of fell on us. And so this kind of happened. So we thought we were in the clear because dads, they finally got a divorce, and we thought we were in the clear. But then, like, she's attached herself to my aunt, who's very similar. And so we're still in this like cycle of like having to deal with drama kind of through my mom and other people that she like lets in her life. And so that has kind of led to just And I was stressed too, because I'm kind of similar to my mom. Like, I don't like people to be mad at me. I don't want to, like, and so I was kind of stuck in the middle of this too. And I was just stressed about letting them live here. And when I found, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And so the whole time they lived there, I was kind of stressed. And then getting them out was a mess. My aunt, like, we gave her 30 days, and then I guess she thought that we just wouldn't act on it. And so after 30 days, they were still there. And so, you know, we had to, I'm honestly surprised that they left, but they did eventually end up leaving. But then, like, they were supposed to be out by this one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to come and, like, see if they're out. And I did, and my uncle was, like, cursing at me and saying I was harassing them, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a terrible situation. I wish I never would have, like, let this happen. And so, yeah. But I mean, it's over now. But yeah, I mean, I do, you know, regret having that happen and letting all my grandparents' things get destroyed. But it happened, and it's ended in, like, me kind of cutting ties with my mom too, because, and it wasn't just like, okay, I get, anyway, it's just, you know, I just don't need stress in my life right now. Like, I don't need, you know, I'm trying to work on my PhD and trying to figure out life myself and, like, what's it all about and everything. And then having another person in my life that's constantly, like, bringing more stress into it and kind of getting me in the middle of things that I don't want to be in the middle of. I was just over it. And I mean, I don't think my mom is a bad person. So, I mean, I think at some point I could have a relationship with her, but just for now, it's just easier for me to just not deal with that, because she's constantly choosing other people over me and my sister. And, you know, just, we're having to, like, clean up drama that, like, she's bringing in. And I mean, I feel bad for her, but, like, I don't know, maybe some people would think it's a bad idea that I need to, you know, stick by my mom and help her, but I don't know. Like, really, it's like everybody's been doing that her whole life. Like, my grandparents took care of us for the most part, and I don't know. Anyway, that's getting way off track. But so what I said next, so that's what happened with that. I said, while I do regret how everything happened, I somewhat feel like it was for the best. If my grandparents' things hadn't been destroyed, I would probably be feeling overwhelmed right now with figuring out what to do with everything. And the whole situation gave me a different perspective on some of the people in my life. So, yeah, like, if that wouldn't have happened, I maybe would have, like, kept up a relationship with my mom, and maybe it wouldn't have been, like, major things like that would have caused, you know, the rift, but it would have probably just been little things that I would constantly be having to deal with. And so, I don't know. So again, like, I can't say that I don't have any regrets, because I do have a lot of regrets. Like, even more recently, like, some things, you know how you're, like, laying in bed at night and you think about something you did, like, 10 years ago, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like, that's been happening to me recently. But it's kind of like, I can't change the past, so I just, you just have to move forward with it. So yeah, definitely things that I wish I wouldn't have done in the past, but it's happened, so what can you do but just move forward? So anyway, I will say it is a good idea to think before you act, but if something happens, then just learn from it and move forward. So yeah, so with the question, how would you do it differently today? I think that's good. Like, I think when you're young, you can make some bad decisions and then look back and kind of learn from them. So I think that's maybe what this question's getting at. But anyway, that's what I have for that day. Tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow with day 157.